Imagine standing at the threshold of an ancient mystical world where the boundaries between matter and spirit blur, and divine forces actively shape our reality. This is the realm of the Chaldean Oracles, a collection of cryptic yet profoundly influential teachings from the 2nd century that wove together the spiritual wisdom of Babylon, Persia, and Greece. But don't be fooled into thinking these are dusty relics of a bygone era. These oracles were revered by some of the greatest thinkers of the ancient world, like Proclus and Iamblichus, who treated them not just as philosophy, but as the very blueprint for engaging with the divine. Now, why should this matter to us today? Because the Chaldean Oracles offer something timeless, a roadmap for the soul's journey, from the material world we inhabit, up through realms of intellect and spirit, toward an ultimate union with the divine. It's a philosophy that blends ancient cosmology, metaphysics, and theurgy, a practice designed to directly connect with higher powers. At the heart of this mystical system is Hecate, the powerful gatekeeper between the intellectual and material worlds, guiding souls along their ascent. Think of it like this. The Chaldean Oracles present a cosmic ladder, each step offering us the opportunity to shed the distractions of the material world and reconnect with something greater. And as we explore these concepts together, you'll see how their influence still ripples through modern esoteric thought, from the Order of the Golden Dawn to contemporary spiritual practices. So, what are these ancient voices really telling us? And how can their vision of the cosmos inspire a deeper understanding of ourselves? Today, we'll dive into the intricate and often fiery metaphysical ideas of the Chaldean Oracles. And along the way, you might just discover that this ancient wisdom still has something powerful to say about our modern quest for meaning. Let's begin with coexistence. Imagine the relationship between the sun, the earth, and life on our planet. They are distinct, yet their interactions are so beautifully balanced that one cannot exist without influencing the other. In the Chaldean worldview, this perfect balance is reflected in the divine triad, the Father, Nous, and the world soul. The Father represents the highest principle, so transcendent that it is beyond our capacity to fully comprehend. But from this transcendent source comes the Nous, the divine intellect that gives structure to the cosmos. And from this structured divine intellect emerges the world soul, which governs all life, movement, and change in the material world. Each of these entities doesn't exist in isolation. Instead, they coexist in a dynamic harmony, each reflecting the others. This is how the universe is sustained, through their mutual influence and balance. Just like our modern understanding of ecosystems or even human relationships, everything is interconnected. When one part shifts, the others do as well. Coexistence is the principle of balance, whether in divine realms, nature, or human society. We thrive when we acknowledge the interdependence of all things, finding strength in connection, not isolation. Now let's explore reinforcement, the idea that actions build upon each other in a cyclical process, strengthening the next step. The Chaldean theurgical triad gives us a remarkable example. Picture this. A practitioner of the ancient theurgical arts begins by invoking divine powers. Through ritual and focus, they send a call, a request to the heavens, invocation. In response, the divine presence stirs, acknowledging the call with a divine response. But this isn't a one-way interaction. This divine interaction enables the ascent of the soul. The soul of the practitioner rises, transcending the material realm, entering deeper communion with the divine. This process is cyclical. Once the soul has experienced this ascent, it is empowered to invoke the divine with even greater potency, and the cycle continues, spiraling upward in ever-increasing strength and understanding. Think of it like a feedback loop of spiritual growth, each step reinforcing the other. In modern terms, we might liken this to personal development. One success leads to more confidence, which in turn fosters greater opportunities for success. The actions build on each other, creating momentum that propels us forward. Growth is a process of mutual reinforcement, whether spiritual, personal, or professional. One action leads to another, and success comes when we allow each step to empower the next. Next, we come to causality, the idea that one thing leads directly to another, like a series of dominoes falling in sequence. The Chaldeans captured this perfectly in their divine emanation triad, the Father, the Nous, and the material world. Here, the Father, the original source of all existence, emanates the Nous, which in turn gives rise to the material world. There is a direct line of causality connecting the three. The material world we inhabit is not random. It is the direct consequence of the Nous, which is itself an emanation of the transcendent Father. Now, if we were to imagine the absence of the Father, what would happen? Without this original cause, there would be no Nous, and without the Nous, no material world. The entire chain collapses. This concept is reflected everywhere around us. Consider a company. If the CEO, the Father, sets a vision, Nous, that vision shapes the actions of the employees, material world. But if the CEO's leadership is removed, the vision falters, and the company falls into disarray. Causality teaches us that actions have consequences. To create real change in the world, we must understand the causes that drive the outcomes we desire. Whether it's in business, relationships, or even spiritual practice, the chain of causation is what shapes reality. Let's take a look at a triad that doesn't follow a simple, straightforward path. In this example, we have the divine light, the purified soul, and knowledge. But what's fascinating here is that the divine light doesn't directly create knowledge. Instead, it works through an intermediary, the soul. Imagine a beam of light shining on a mirror. If the mirror is clean and polished, it reflects the light clearly. But if it's covered in dust or grime, the light will be scattered and distorted. In the same way, the divine light, which represents pure truth and insight, must first pass through the purified soul. Only when the soul has been cleansed and prepared, free of distractions and impurities, can it fully absorb the light and reflect it as knowledge. This isn't a direct transfer of information, it's a nonlinear process. The soul must undergo a transformation before it can receive and process the divine truth. The light purifies the soul, but the soul's readiness is what makes the knowledge possible. If the soul is not prepared, if it remains clouded by impurities, then the divine light, no matter how brilliant, won't result in true knowledge. In our lives, this reminds us that deep understanding or insight often doesn't come directly. We must prepare ourselves for it. Purify our minds and hearts before we can truly grasp higher truths. Next, let's explore a triad where the elements not only influence one another, but also reflect and encompass each other. We start with divine law, which is the governing principle of the universe, an invisible yet all-pervading force that maintains order. This divine law leads to harmony, a state of balance where all things function according to their proper place and purpose. Now, where this triad becomes especially powerful is in the third element, the cosmos, the entire universe itself. The cosmos is not merely a product of divine law and harmony, it is a living reflection of both. It embodies these principles, the laws of nature and the harmony we see in the movement of the planets, the cycles of life, and even the rhythm of our own bodies are all part of this cosmic structure, but it doesn't stop there. The cosmos not only reflects divine law and harmony, it also reinforces them. Every part of the universe embodies these laws, creating an inclusive structure where everything is interconnected. It's as if the universe is a grand symphony, where each note is both a reflection of the underlying principles of music and a vital part of the greater harmony. In our lives, we can think of this triad when we consider how our actions reflect the values we hold. It's not enough to follow principles or seek harmony in an abstract way. We must embody them in everything we do. In doing so, we contribute to the greater order of the world around us. Now we turn to a triad where the elements are deeply intertwined, each influencing and supporting the others in a dynamic, conjoined relationship. Here we have divine power, human will, and celestial intermediaries. Each of these plays a crucial role in the process of theurgy, ritual practices aimed at invoking divine powers. Let's start with human will. The will of the practitioner is the initiating force. It's the intention, the focus, and the desire to connect with the divine. But human will on its own is not enough to reach the highest spiritual realms. This is where the celestial intermediaries come in. These divine beings act as bridges, facilitating communication between the human practitioner and the divine power they seek to invoke. Once the intermediaries are invoked, the divine power flows through them, responding to the human will. But here's where the conjoined aspect comes into play. The divine power strengthens both the human will and the intermediaries. It's not a one-way flow of energy. The divine power works in conjunction with the human will, empowering it, and the intermediaries help channel this power back into the practitioner's intention. This triad shows us that powerful results come when different forces come together and reinforce each other. In the context of ritual, the divine power isn't something that can be commanded directly. It requires the conjunction of human will and the mediating force of the celestial intermediaries. Only then does the true power of the divine flow. In our lives, we can see this triad at work in any situation where collaboration is key. No one element can achieve greatness on its own, but together, with the right connections and support, we can tap into forces much greater than ourselves. Harmony isn't just a musical concept, it's a fundamental principle of existence, reflected in the emanation triad of Father, Nous, and World Soul. This triad reveals how different elements don't merely influence each other, but come together in pairs to produce the third element. Let's break it down. The Father and Nous together give rise to the World Soul, the transcendent source, the Father, and the structuring intellect, Nous, harmonized to create the World Soul, the cosmic mediator that animates and sustains the physical universe. But here's where it gets more interesting. The Father and World Soul together also bring forth Nous. The Father's transcendent essence and the life-giving force of the World Soul combine to manifest the Divine Intellect, Nous. This shows how the process is reciprocal. The harmony between the two elements always leads to the birth of the third. Finally, Nous and World Soul together reflect the ultimate transcendence of the Father. By contemplating the intellect and the soul, we are led back to the ineffable source, showing how the divine triad is deeply interconnected in all directions. This harmonic triad teaches us that balance comes not from isolation, but from the dynamic interaction between different forces. In our lives, harmony is achieved when two aspects of ourselves, such as mind and body or reason and emotion, work together to produce something greater than either could on its own. Convergence is the principle of multiple paths leading to a single unified goal. In the theurgical union triad, we see how the divine intellect, Hecate, and the human soul all work toward a shared purpose, spiritual ascent and union. The divine intellect represents the highest form of knowledge and being. It directs its influence toward the human soul, but not directly. It works through Hecate, the intermediary goddess who bridges the gap between the mortal and divine. Hecate acts as the guide, helping the human soul ascend toward divine knowledge. But this triad is not one way. Hecate, as mediator, also leads both the divine and the human toward each other. She facilitates the union between the divine intellect and the human soul. Without her, the soul could not reach the divine, and the divine could not descend to meet the soul. Finally, the human soul itself is constantly striving for union. Through spiritual practices, the soul reaches out toward Hecate, seeking her guidance, and in doing so is drawn closer to the divine intellect. This process is fully convergent. Each element seeks and leads to the others, reinforcing their interconnectedness. In our own lives, we experience convergence when we bring together different aspects of ourselves or our lives toward a common goal. The mind, heart, and spirit must all work together to achieve true personal or spiritual fulfillment. Each element of our being is incomplete without its interaction with the others. Combination can sometimes be about exclusion rather than inclusion. In the triad of the soul's journey, we see how the interaction of two forces can exclude or negate the third, creating an either-or scenario that reflects a deep tension between material existence and spiritual enlightenment. First, let's look at material world and divine emanation. When these two forces come together, when a person lives in harmony with both the physical world and the flow of divine energy, spiritual ignorance is negated. The individual becomes aware of their higher nature and begins the ascent towards spiritual realization. They are no longer trapped in ignorance. But if the material world and spiritual ignorance are paired, something is excluded. In this case, divine emanation is absent. The soul is caught in a loop of material existence, blind to the divine forces at play, unaware of its own potential for growth and transcendence. It's a kind of spiritual imprisonment. Finally, if someone is in tune with divine emanation but remains in a state of spiritual ignorance, they cannot fully engage with the material world. This suggests that enlightenment without awareness of physical existence is incomplete. True spiritual growth involves an understanding of both the divine and the material. This triad teaches us that life is often about choices and trade-offs. We can be fully present in the material world, but if we ignore the divine, we remain in spiritual ignorance. On the other hand, if we open ourselves to the divine, we may transcend the limitations of material existence. The key is in finding the right combination of forces, knowing when to embrace and when to exclude. Association in this context is about how elements pair up to either create or block higher outcomes. Let's look at this through the mystical knowledge triad, where we explore the relationship between ritual purification, divine illumination, and astral influence. Start with ritual purification. This is the first step in preparing the soul for deeper spiritual experiences. Through ascetic practices, fasting, or theurgical rituals, the soul is cleansed of impurities and open to divine influence. But purification alone doesn't guarantee divine illumination. It's one part of the equation. On the other hand, we have astral influence. In ancient thought, the stars and planets were seen as forces that could bind a soul to the material world. The soul, when subjected to these influences, is tied to fate, to the cycles of the material world, and to ignorance. It's a form of limitation. However, it is possible to overcome these astral constraints through spiritual purification. When ritual purification successfully aligns with the overcoming of astral influence, something profound happens. Divine illumination emerges. This is the mystical knowledge or gnosis granted by the gods, where the purified soul, no longer bound by the material world's limitations, receives insight into higher truths. But the triad is more complex than this simple progression. If you fail to purify the soul remains trapped under the power of the astral forces, and as a result, divine illumination is not granted. Conversely, if one overcomes astral influence but has not undergone purification, they also remain in ignorance because they are unprepared for illumination. True illumination only happens when ritual purification and the overcoming of astral influence are in harmony. So the key insight here is about association. The proper pairing of ritual action and overcoming external influences is what leads to divine knowledge. In life, we often need both internal transformation, like purifying our thoughts or behaviors, and external liberation, like breaking free from harmful societal or environmental influences to gain deeper understanding and wisdom. Now let's explore a more intricate relationship integration. In the emanation integration triad, we find the relationship between the divine fire, the cosmos, and the demiurge, and how these elements come together to create and sustain the universe. The first element is divine fire. This is not literal fire, but a metaphor for the primal energy of creation, the raw potential and life force of the divine. It's the spark that begins the process of creation, emanating pure power. The divine fire initiates the unfolding of the cosmos. Without this divine energy, the universe wouldn't come into being. Next, we have the demiurge, the divine craftsman who is responsible for shaping the cosmos. The demiurge takes the raw potential of the divine fire and gives it form and structure. The universe, as we know it, isn't just raw energy. It's organized and harmonized according to divine principles. The demiurge plays a crucial role here. Without this organizing force, the cosmos would remain chaotic and unformed. Together, these two forces, the primal divine fire and the shaping power of the demiurge, integrate to produce the cosmos, the harmonious structure of the universe. But here's the twist. Each element on its own also plays an essential role in creating the cosmos. The divine fire on its own leads to the birth of the universe through its raw creative force, and the demiurge, through its own independent effort, shapes the cosmos by ordering this energy. However, it's only when both the divine fire and the demiurge work together that the cosmos not only exists but thrives and is sustained. If either element is absent, if the divine fire is extinguished, or if the demiurge does not apply its organizing force, the universe would fall into disorder or cease to exist. This triad teaches us a profound lesson about integration. Each part can function on its own to some degree, but true creation and sustained order happen when all elements are working in harmony. In life, we often find that while we can make progress with individual effort, it is the integration of different forces, whether they are physical, mental, or spiritual, that leads to true accomplishment. It's about aligning raw potential with purpose and order. As we draw all these ancient insights together, one thing becomes clear: the universe, in all its complexity, mirrors the same patterns we see in our own lives. Whether we're talking about divine realms or our day-to-day existence, the triads from the Chaldean Oracles offer profound guidance on how we can live more fully, harmoniously, and purposefully. What have we learned from these triads? Each triad reveals a different dynamic, a different way of relating to the world and to ourselves. From the Harmonic triad, we see that life is about balance and reciprocity. Whether it's balancing mind and body, work and rest, or relationships with others, harmony comes when two forces work together to create something greater. It's a reminder that harmony in life doesn't happen by accident. It's a product of thoughtful interactions between different aspects of our being. The Convergent triad shows us that true growth and fulfillment come when every part of us is pulling in the same direction. It's not enough to have just one element working toward a goal. Our heart, mind, and actions must converge. Whether in relationships, careers, or personal growth, convergence is what gives us momentum. When we align our passions, intentions, and efforts, we can achieve anything. In the combination triad, we see the importance of understanding that certain elements in our lives may exclude others. Not every choice allows us to have it all, and sometimes we must choose between staying in the material world or rising toward higher understanding. It's a reminder that wisdom is about knowing what to leave behind as much as it is about knowing what to embrace. The association triad teaches us that progress comes from pairing the right elements in our lives. Ritual purification, the inner work we do, needs to be aligned with the external world, where we free ourselves from harmful influences. Only when the inner and outer are in harmony can we achieve true illumination. And finally, the integration triad reminds us of the power of uniting potential with purpose. Just as the divine fire and the demiurge must work together to create the cosmos, so too must we integrate our creative energy with direction and order. It's a call to harness our raw potential, to shape it with intention, and to create a meaningful life. So how do we apply this? The answer is simple but profound. Balance, align, choose, pair, integrate. These triads are more than ancient wisdom. They are principles that guide us in every aspect of life. We are constantly navigating relationships between opposing forces, working to align our different energies, making choices that shape our reality, and seeking to harmonize the chaos into something beautiful. As you leave here today, take these patterns with you. Ask yourself, what elements in my life need more harmony? Where do I need to bring different parts of myself into alignment? What do I need to leave behind in order to move forward? And how can I integrate my potential into something real and lasting? Because, in the end, the secret to living a fulfilling, meaningful life is learning to navigate these triads, to see the relationships between the forces around us, and to use them to create the life we truly want.